Welcome to the Digital Dreaming Off the Ground podcast. I'm your host, Asif Ali. I know it's been a minute since our last episode, so let's get right into it. Week 1 of NFL is in the books. Obviously, Niners lost to the Bears in an upset, 19-10 at Soldier Field. You know, my good buddy Brian Arnold was at that game. Shout out Brian if you're watching this. But hey, that's nature of the NFL, right? If you don't come prepared and you don't close out the games, and you basically, commit two penalties, third downs to amass over 100 yards of penalties, then that's pretty much the outcome, the end result. So Trey Lance obviously looked he made some pretty great passes, but there also made passes where they were just bad reads, and I was talking to our fellow co-host on the show, Salman Huck, about this, yesterday. Essentially, the whole issue is that Trey is looking like Cap. That's looking like his ceiling right now, right? And because he's looking like a less athletic, less faster version of Colin Kaepernick. But essentially, you have to also consider the sample size, right? He's only had, just 2 games in the NFL last year, 1 full season in college. This is his first full training camp. So perhaps, after a few more games, he'll get better. Obviously, many fans are calling for Shanahan to bench Trey and go Jimmy. But essentially, the issue with that is that if you do that, then you're going to have a situation where Jimmy and Trey will basically, if Jimmy does well, the lock will be divided. If Jimmy does poorly, you've already shot Trey Lance's confidence, and the team's underperformed, and they'll probably underperform even more. So obviously Jimmy and Trey have been very vocal, like I said in my last episode of the podcast, about not having a beef with each other, really viewing each other as brothers. But obviously, the proof is the pudding. The tape, the game film doesn't lie. It was pretty sad to see how all that shaped out. So actually, let me just go ahead and tell you guys. Okay, so pretty much my fantasy teams, I'm in 2 leagues, the ESPN Plus Fantasy League in Minnesota and the Pittsburgh Pro. Both of them are PPR, H to H. Let me just pull my fantasy app, ESPN Fantasy, so I can give you guys. So let me put this to the screen. As you can see, I won 1-0, 141.12 to 132.32. So basically got a 10-point win, give or take. And this was in the league that I drafted. And then the other league I'm in, the final score is 114.72 to 118.92. So, obviously like that, the other league, which I basically just let auto draft run. A lot of my team did pretty well, but I think actually my bench, Freiermuth, Wilson, Garrett Wilson, Waller, he did okay at 11 points. Jacobs had 14 points. So, I just pretty much, I feel like, and the Colts defense, special teams only racked up around 6 points. And then my other league, the Niners basically did much better. But let me just go down from the top. Lamar Jackson, 20.5 points. Travis Etienne Jr., 10.3 points. Kareem Hunt, 11.5. Michael Pittman Jr., 15 points. Devontae Adams, obviously 18.7 points. And then, 18 points from Trey Lance, who's actually one of my top performers on my bench. Christian Kirk had 12.6 points. Marquez Valdes-Scantling had 11.2 points. So ultimately, I think it's just, from PPR perspectives, I think, the team I drafted was pretty PPR heavy. But the league that was auto drafted, I didn't really have much of a say. So obviously I'm pretty much stuck with them. And I think George Kittle was on. Yeah, George Kittle. Let me go back. Yeah, so actually, no, I apologize. I gave you guys wrong numbers. Week 1, Lamar Jackson had 20.2 points. Kareem had 23 points with 2 total touchdowns. Michael Pittman Jr. had 27.1 points. Devontae had 30.1 points with a touchdown. Kittle had only 0 points. Let me pull this up to the screen. Kittle right there. Look at that. 0 points. And I still racked up 141.12 points in this league. Oh my God. So imagine when he's healthy. And obviously Jerry Jeudy performed very well. He had 20.2 points. And we'll get into the Seattle game in a bit, Russell Wilson's return. But ultimately the Niners my teams, my PPR heavy team basically outperformed my other team because Trey Lance only had 9. I'm a little worried now to have Trey Lance on my roster because he was predicted to be MVP prior to the season, and obviously it might be overreaction, Monday, Tuesday after week 1. But if his play continues, through the rest of through week 2, at the same pace it continued as week 1, then there's going to be significant problems with the team, the dynamics, and obviously Trey's a great athlete, but he hasn't really proven much in terms of kind of being a starter. He hasn't proven that so far that he deserves to be a starter. So power rankings in the NFL. So ESPN has the Bills at number 1, Chiefs number 2. I don't really care about everybody else, but I do think the Bills are definitely the number 1 best team in the NFL. I think Tampa Bay is the number 1 ranked NFC team. If I'm not mistaken, after Green Bay got blown out, Tampa Bay, obviously, they shut out Dallas. I mean, there's no reason to not put them as the favorite in the NFC. I said Tampa Bay is not the favorite in the NFC. I thought it was going to be the Rams or the Niners, but seeing as how the Rams performed on Thursday night at the kickoff game, see how the Niners performed, and seeing how Tampa Bay performed on Sunday Night Football against a very good Dallas team. I think Tampa Bay definitely is deserving of that number 1 spot. I also think the Bills are better than Kansas City. I think this is going to be the season if the Bills continue at this pace. There's still a big if, right? In Kansas City, because Kansas City was looking at the clicking on all cylinders. The Bills can definitely be, the team to be and could be a Super Bowl favorite. I ultimately think that it's going to come down to how well Josh Allen plays down the stretch. We've seen him play tremendously down the stretch, but not good enough to beat the game. Not good enough to beat the Kansas City Chiefs when it matters the most. And just not good enough to win, that playoff game to get that team to the Super Bowl, right? So hopefully, we'll see that this year. I'm a huge Josh Allen fan. Those of you follow me on LinkedIn, I picked the Bills, and obviously my LinkedIn poll, 47% of the people who voted on my LinkedIn poll for the Bills and Rams game voted for the Bills. 100% vote on Twitter for the Bills and Rams, for the Bills as well. There's a lot of, and I believe Kurt Warner and all the NFL Network analysts have the Bills over the Rams in the Super Bowl before the season started. So, I mean, there's no reason to not think the Bills can do it. The Bills are definitely built to do it. I do think ultimately, though, it's going to come down to, again, how well Josh Allen plays down the stretch, how good that defense can be, if that defense can continue. Obviously, Josh Allen's chemistry with Stephon Diggs is paramount. And I mean that I see that continuing, throughout the rest of the year. Stephon Diggs racked up a lot of fantasy points from other fans' team that I lost. I think it was around 26.8 points. And the opposing team, Team Ayala, he had Cooper Kupp. And so, I'm very happy I won, in one of my leagues. So, and I'm currently, I think, first in the Western Conference in the league, in the Pittsburgh Pro Plus League. I'm first in the West, and then in the other league, I think I'm dead last because obviously after week 1, 0-1 means that you're pretty much bottom. So I think and obviously in my Minnesota, my Pittsburgh league where I'm 1-0. I don't think too many people. Let me check the league. If I'm not mistaken, so only 2 other teams scored over 140 points, and so I was one of them. So currently, my team is basically the 3rd best team, PPR, just PPR wise after week 1, right? But anyways, back to some more outcomes. I think Seattle and the Denver Broncos. So this guy right here, I was watching him and Eli kind of do the Manny cast for the first time yesterday on ESPN2. And they actually and near the end of the first half, I caught something interesting. Eli was asking Peyton about kind of the 2-minute drill. And did he talk to Russell about it? And then Payne said, no, he didn't. But he talked to Hackett about it. And he talked about kind of, how quickly, the options are, the audibles need to be, and how precise the timing needs to be. And I think what we saw last night, in Seattle, and shout out to Ryan Harris, basically doing the Super Bowl game, doing the Denver Broncos commentary, guest the show, great commentator. What we're seeing is obviously just the lack of experience, the lack of chemistry with Wilson and his receivers. I saw Wilson basically make a lot of great throws, and obviously Jerry Jeudy on my fantasy team helped me rack up that win with 20.2 points. But I mean, outside of a 67-yard touchdown, I mean, I think he had maybe 40 total yards that whole game. And I think, if we look at it from the perspective of kind of, how the offensive line played, I mean, the Seattle defensive front four were just basically bullying Russell Wilson all night, and when you don't have the type of protection, the receivers aren't catching the balls. Or they're catching the balls, but they're not staying in bounds, and there's not enough. And obviously, what's his name? Yeah, Melvin Gordon. I forgot his name. Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams. I think it was Gordon who fumbled the ball at the goal line, and I think Seattle was the first team to fumble the ball twice at the 1 since 1987 Kansas City Chiefs. And so I personally don't think not Seattle. Denver was a team who was the first team since 1987 Kansas City Chiefs to fumble the ball twice at the 1-yard line. So, I mean, if I personally don't think Denver is going to win the Super Bowl this year. I mean, I do think that they can definitely make a playoff push, maybe, right? But I think Kansas City is looking to pick up right where they left off, and I do think they may be successful this time around. Cincinnati obviously losing to Pittsburgh in the opening game, obviously off that field goal in overtime when their kicker missed 2 field goals. I think that Cincinnati, I mean, it was a close game, right? But I mean, we're gonna have to see because a lot of times, teams have suffered a Super Bowl hangover. It might be both teams, it might just be one team. I don't know, right? The Rams got just outplayed and destroyed by the Bills. The Bengals played the Steelers down to the wire. Obviously, Kenny Pickett had a great game. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of great kind of narratives going around the NFL, right? So I'm thinking probably, if I have to pick two of the best teams, I do think again the Bills and Bucks, they'd probably be my Super Bowl pick as of right now. But obviously Kansas City still being in the mix, they could definitely shake that up. The Vikings look really good. We'll see if they can get over that proverbial hump too as well. Again, inconsistency is really the kind of key factor for the Vikings this year. Ultimately, though, I mean, I think the Broncos and now the first place Seattle Seahawks, right? I mean, I think the Seahawks now who are first place in the NFC West, that defense is really good, but I think the offense, they're really underrated because obviously Noah Fant, some other guys outside DK Metcalf, they don't really get enough praises, out because obviously the whole focus was on Wilson the past 10 years, right? So now with Geno Smith, I mean, they may or may not be able to win. But then again, obviously Denver had many opportunities to win the game yesterday. And I think one of the more questionable decisions outside of not letting Russell have the ball going 4th and 5, with the end of the game in the balance, I think one of the most questionable decisions in yesterday's game was essentially not trying to just take the points. When it's the third quarter, it's 4th down. I think Hackett tried to go for it twice, even before the 4th quarter when they're at the 1-yard line. And I think if had they just self field goals, they would have come out victorious from that game. Or Russell Wilson would have had his return party not spoiled, right? So I mean, play calling is a big key in this, right? So, but I do think that anyway, again, I mean, Seattle's a great team, and now Niners have to go play them next week. It's going to be a very difficult matchup for Niners because Seattle matches up well. They have a great front four. Their secondary is not obviously Jamal Adams is injured, but they do have some playmakers, in the backing core. Brooks, right? I think his name is right, number 56. He led I think he was second in the league in tackles last year, and I think he set a franchise record for most tackles in a season last year. So there's a lot of dogs on the Seattle kind of defensive side of the ball. Obviously the offensive side of the ball, you still got DK Metcalf, you still got Tyler Lockett. You still have key playmakers, right? So Niners are going to have their hands full. It's going to be a tough matchup next week. But anyways, I think, I guess kind of I think ultimately from like a fantasy perspective, first let's talk about from a real game perspective, right? So from a real life kind of NFL perspective as a fan, I'm looking forward to seeing how the Bills do continuing this trend. I'm looking forward to seeing, if if the Vikings can really keep that. I mean, that would be who I'd be rooting for. The Niners can't get it together. I would want to see the Vikings hopefully make a Super Bowl push, or at least get to the NFC Championship game and win, because they've gone there numerous times in the past decade, and obviously before that, they haven't got to the NFC Championship numerous times. They've gone to the NFC Championship one time in the past decade, but in the past 15 years they've been to the NFC Championship game twice, right? Once under Brett Favre back in 2009, and once under Kirk Cousins. If Minnesota can keep up some consistency, then they will be a team to watch and be a fun team to watch. Obviously, Kirk Cousins is looking great. But and Justin Jefferson, right? But I mean it's really just, I mean, I feel like it's so early and we're in overreaction mode from what happened that we were already crowning Super Bowl favorites. But I mean, I do think power rankings are correct. I think the Bills were already kind of that preseason kind of Super Bowl champion pick. And I think now obviously they kind of look like they're going to continue. They're basically proving Vegas correct. It's funny. I was actually in at Hard Rock Casino Hotel this past weekend in Lake Tahoe, and a lot of people were placing their bets. A lot of people, I want to say they bet on the Bills obviously winning, but they didn't take they took the under. So we'll see, how those picks shape out. But I do think it's a little too early for anyone to really be hedging their bets, on a Super Bowl championship team, at this point of the year, the season, right? I mean, this guy right here, number 12, right? I mean, look great, obviously on Sunday night. You can't ever count him out. He was voted number one to the NFL top 100 players list. I personally thought it was Aaron Donald based on last year, but I mean, he was number two. People, the NFL players, they know better than I do, right? They know better than any of us do. They all voted for Brady, so I mean, there's a reason for that. So, we'll see how that shapes out. And actually, let me preview my next week fantasy matchup. So let's see, moving forward to next week. So let me just refresh my player data. Oh, I forgot to mention. Let's go into our next segment, which is gonna be the pick'em, my NFL pick'em. Let me get that pulled up so I can put that to the screen. All right. So 9-6, finished in the 91.2 percentile in my pick'em. So I'll kind of give you guys my picks. I picked Kansas City over the Chargers. I picked the Browns over the Jets. Sorry, whoops, I apologize. That's week. Let me go back to week one. So I picked the Bills. I picked the Saints. I picked the Niners. That was my one wrong pick. I picked the Bengals. That was my other wrong pick. I picked the Eagles over the Lions. I picked the Dolphins over the Patriots. The Ravens over the Jets. The Commanders over the Jaguars. The Panthers over the Browns. The Colts over the Texans, which was a draw. The Packers over the Vikings, the Kansas City Chiefs with the Cardinals, and the Titans over the Giants, Chargers over Raiders, Bucks over Cowboys, Broncos over Seahawks. So let's just go down the list. So basically, the right matchups I picked: Bills, Saints, Eagles, Dolphins, Ravens, Commanders. Let's see, Kansas City Chiefs, Chargers, Buccaneers. And incorrectly, Niners, Bengals, okay, Panthers, Packers, Titans, and Broncos. That's my 6. So, still, I mean, not too bad. I'm ranked in the 6. I'm 60. My rank is 62K. I'm really happy that I ranked in 91.2 percentile. Hopefully, this next week. I mean, if I'm going to look at these next week matchups, I picked the Chiefs. I picked the Browns over the Chiefs over the Chargers, Browns over the Jets. I'm picking the Commanders over the Lions based on Carson Wentz. I'm picking the Bucks over the Saints. I'm picking the Panthers. Actually, no, I'm picking the Giants over the Panthers. I'm picking the Steelers over the Patriots. I'm going to pick the Colts over the Jaguars, the Ravens over the Dolphins, the Rams over the Falcons, the Niners over the Seattle Seahawks, the Bengals over the Cowboys, but without Dak, Dallas is a different team, Broncos over Texans, Cardinals over Raiders, and I'm picking Packers over Bears, Bills over Titans, and Vikings over Eagles. So those are my week 2 picks. So you can take it to Vegas. I have no idea. I was 9-6, so I'm not sure how much money that would equate to. But anyways, so those are my picks for week 2. Let me go pull up my fantasy matchup real quick. Okay, so my fantasy matchup. Let's go back. Okay, so my Pittsburgh League, Lamar Jackson, Travis Etienne Jr. So who are my matchups? Let me see. Where's my matchup? Okay, so they're not showing my week 2 matchup. There we go. Okay, so I'm playing Team McBeer. So I'm playing Dak Prescott, Alvin Kamara. Oh, this guy's Prescott. Who's his bench quarterback? He doesn't have a bench quarterback. Oh my God, this guy's screwed. I'm an 11.1 favorite in my next fantasy week matchup. This guy is Dak Prescott on his fantasy team. Holy crap. Alvin Kamara, Javonte Williams, Cooper Kupp, David Johnson, Dallas Goedert, Ezekiel Elliott, Green Bay defense special teams, Matt Prater, St. Brown, Gabriel Davis, London, DeAndre Hopkins, Freiermuth, Gage, and Njoku. I'm liking my odds. Yeah, I'm liking my odds because Lamar Jackson, Travis Etienne Jr., Kareem Hunt, Michael Pittman Jr., Devontae Adams, George Kittle. I think Kittle is gonna give me some points this week, hopefully. Jerry Jeudy, the Niners defense special teams. Divisional matchup, I think will be good. Tucker, Lance, Kirk, Valdez-Scantling, Naheem Hines, Noah Fant, Raheem Mostert, and Marvin Jones Jr. Yeah, no, I mean, it's going to be a good matchup, but I'm liking my odds next week. I'm liking my odds. Let me look at my other league. Actually, you know what? I don't even care. My other league, I don't even care. I didn't draft that league. The league's not real to me. I'm not making any movements on my roster lineup that league because it was an auto draft league. I didn't draft any of my fucking players. They drafted them all for me. And when you draft all the players, like, and I'm not even paying attention to, like, you know, the draft ticker and whenever, and when I'm on the clock, you know, I'm just like whatever, you know. But I do think my next fantasy matchup, I'm really excited to see how that shapes out because, I mean, I do think I have decisive advantage coming into it. You know, looking at where my players are. I mean, then again, let me just go ahead and just read it. Obviously, 1 second. I mean, obviously Lamar is going to have a tougher time, I think, next week against Miami. And whatever. I mean, I still think he'll put up numbers. You know, I'm happy for Mike McDaniel. Let's actually talk about the Dolphins a little bit. The Dolphins, obviously, you know, they basically obliterated the New England Patriots, which was a playoff team last year. The Dolphins are looking like they're going to probably make their first playoff. I think their first playoff one in how many years? 10 years, right? Was it 10 years and 10? He'll led them to the playoff, 2012? I think it was. He led them to the wild card. So, yeah, I think, Dolphins will probably be a playoff team just based on where everything stands right now. And I'm thinking that, you know, the Dolphins look good because Mike McDaniel, his offensive scheme, his system, and beating Bill Belichick with like 74% win percentage against rookie coaches making their debut. I remember ESPN FS1, they're all talking about that. Undisputed, right? Noah Weil is saying that, Bill Belichick has such a great winning percentage against rookie head coaches making their debut. But I mean, Mike McDaniel just basically, he Yoda the Obi-Wan Kenobi Jedi Master and Bill Belichick. You know, so yeah, no, there's a lot to look forward to, man. I'm looking forward to this next coming matchup. I hope the Niners can bounce back against Seattle, but it's going to be a very tough matchup for them. So we could very well be 0-2. You know, I think I reposted a tweet that I saw NFL handicapper who said if the Niners are 0-2 and Shanahan sticks with Trey Lance as a starter, he's going to lose the locker room. I'm going to have to co-sign that just based on where we are right now. But at the same time, you know, I'm very torn because, I mean, you can make the argument for Trey Lance and letting the kid just have, you know, a little more time, you know, as starter to kind of get his legs under him. Shannon Sharp always talks about on Undisputed for FS1, right? You know, you gotta get into rhythm. He had to get his reps. You know, he has to, like, you know, every player, every great player needs to get their reps in so that way they can really be ready. You know, really kind of feel the game and be game ready. Yeah, I think Trey just got, like, we had a small sample size last year. That last preseason game against Houston was a good indicator, and obviously the game against the Bears, the reads are just not there. His progression is not there just yet. You know, and so I do think that, you know, he's going to have to take a little bit more time. So, you know, I just developing that pocket awareness, which is developing a better way to kind of read coverages, read the game, and kind of, you know, the RPO kind of zone option is there from Shanahan to help him just succeed. So we'll see. You know, we'll see what happens. I mean, Trey definitely has a cannon arm, so like that guy Cap right there. But, you know, obviously, hopefully we can get some guy like this guy or even that guy, you know, behind center. You know, it's funny. I think I saw the Joe Montana Guinness commercials. I'm like, those commercials are so awesome. I love that Joe still kind of gained that GOAT. And that new kind of series on Peacock where that guy goes back in time in history and he's able to kind of wear shoulder pads and basically be famous characters from history. He was Joe Montana. I mean, that's pretty remarkable too. So, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff out there, cool content on Peacock. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think the Niners, you know, we'll see how they kind of play out. My fantasy matchup next week, I'll kind of fill you guys in. I'm 1-1 in both my leagues. Or 1-1, 1-0, 0-1, so 1-1 overall in fantasy. I'm 9-6, my picks and pick'ems, and yeah, we'll see if I can keep that going. And you know, I enjoy this first week of football. If you enjoy this episode, please be sure to share, subscribe, and, you know, spread the word. And we'll keep the momentum going. But anyways, hope you guys enjoy this episode of the Digital Dream Off the Gridiron podcast. I'm your host, Austin Felice, signing off.